Mike Johnson tags out. Mark Parrish tags in. Welcome to the show.
You got more American blood.
You got the memo, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The color code.
Absolutely.
I like it. I
read my emails.
It. Listen, I know you're always well dressed, but let's get into the series. We just heard Jay Woodcroft, right? And this is a rematch from last year. And the one thing that he talked about was attention to detail. You need that in a 7-game series when you're facing the same team over and over and over again. But in this series, for the LA Kings, it really comes down to one major task, right? And isn't that shutting down 150 point plus Connor McDavid? Do they have the ability to do that, do you think?
I don't think anybody has that ability to shut down Connor McDavid. The year that Connor McDavid is having is literally when we played Mario in the 90s. You run into Mario and it's like, hey, can we just keep him to 2? If we can keep him to 2, we got a chance. So it literally is about containing Connor McDavid. And for LA, their structure. McClellan's done a great job. They've got to really rely on that structure. And we're going to have to see guys step up, too, for offensively because there is no shutting down McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent-Hopkins, Kane. They've got so many weapons. You're still going to have to score goals. And I'm kind of looking at Kevin Fiala to step up big time for the LA Kings. But their structure, they are going to have to play so sound defensively just to try and keep 97 Knights low.
And the thing, even outside of Connor McDavid, Jeff, I mean, the Edmonton Oilers are the hottest team in the league over the last couple of months coming into the postseason. You look at the last 20 games, no one has a better record than the Edmonton Oilers heading into the postseason. And I think it's important to note as well that as much as this is a rematch between the Oilers and Kings, these are both quite different teams than the ones that went head-to-head last year in the first round. What stands out to you about this matchup?
Well, they are very different. And you talk about Edmonton the last 20 games. It's no coincidence that the type of hockey they played, mature hockey, not pop gun hockey, just all the time, goal, goal, goal. They got much more comfortable, Jackie, playing in 2-1, 3-2 type games. They're still going to score. As Perry says, they're still going to, Draisaitl's going to get his, Kane's going to get his Zach. Oh, don't forget about Zach Hyman. He's just going to be in front of the net, making misery for the opponent goaltender as well. They're all going to score. But the fact is they don't feel like they have to score now. They're okay. You early in the year, you said that the LA Kings beat them twice, right? And then Edmonton won the last couple of games. I don't think that that's coincidence, Jackie, as they started shifting from getting frustrated, playing, let's call it less mature, not immature, but less mature hockey. And now, especially after getting Mattias Ekholm, they're playing a lot more mature hockey, a lot more playoff-style hockey. They're a lot more balanced lineup, too. That's what comes down to as well. Guys get slotted better. They're playing in their roles better, and their team DNA appears better. I've really enjoyed watching them play. I was having fun watching them, Jackie, and Barry, early on in the season because of everything that Connor McEverything could do. You just couldn't wait to see what he could or would do that night. But I never felt like they were legit. The last third of the season, hands down, absolutely watching them live and watching them on TV. I'm like, this team, holy smokes, this team is for real. It's going to come down to Stuart Skinner as well in net. All right, we'll talk about that in a minute. But if they play that mature hockey, Jackie, I think they have a great chance in the West.
Well, you mentioned Mattias Ekholm, and this team has looked very good with him in the lineup. Let's take a look at the numbers since March 1st, acquiring Mattias Ekholm. 18-2-1 is a ridiculous record. And if I'm not mistaken, since March 1st, that is the best record in the NHL. Yes, even better than those Boston Bruins in terms of record. They're scoring almost 4.5 goals a game. They're allowing just over 2.5. The power play has been ridiculous for this team all year long, and Mattias Ekholm has really provided something for this Edmonton Oilers that I'm not sure they've had in the last couple of years. This is, to me, the best version of the Edmonton Oilers heading into the postseason, maybe in the McDavid era.
100%. There is an urgency and intensity, not just to Connor McDavid, but the rest of the team. I think Connor's sick of hearing all the things, the leadership and all this thing and his maturity. Well, you give him time. Well, it looks like he's had enough of that. There is an intensity behind him. We saw it last year come out in the playoffs in Calgary, the overtime goal. He had that big moment. I think that was a big confidence builder from him. And he has been a man on a mission this year, not just with his points, but with that Edmonton Oilers team, leading that team. And he's ready to take a big step in his career towards, I think, a pretty big trophy and a pretty big mark.
Jackie, you couldn't be more right about how In the Connor McDavid era, they haven't had this. It's not even close. Before that, too, getting Mattias Ekholm, and it's amazing to say that about one guy, but it just makes them so much more complete team. They were a team that hoped they could beat you by scoring enough goals, because they were going to give up more. You just have those stats up on the board. It's not that they're still not scoring goals. It's just how much fewer they're giving up. They also don't feel forced to have to be the high-flying Oilers. They can just be themselves, and that allows them to be more comfortable. And Ekholm probably doesn't get enough credit for being involved offensively, too. It's like, 14 points in the 21 games that he's been there. That's not too bad. You're talking, a 50-point pace, maybe even more? I'm awful at math, so forgive me. It's 50-plus point pace for a guy over an 82-game season. So it's not like here's a guy who's just a shutdown, stay-at-home guy. But the way that he brings everybody or puts everybody into a better spot in the lineup's been great. And this team, because of it, Jackie, hands down, hasn't been this complete ever since McDavid's been there.
Well, listen, I got a math guy in my ear. 55-point pace for the numbers folks out there.
That's pretty good, Jeff. That's pretty good.
I do want to make sure I get one more element of this series into the conversation, because when the Edmonton Oilers brought Jack Campbell into the mix, we all thought he would be their number one guy. But here's Stuart Skinner has backstopped this team to a lot of W's this year. On the other side, the LA Kings have Joonas Korpisalo, a goaltender that they acquire at the trade deadline to be their goalie. So when you look at the goaltending matchup, Perry, what do you make of it? Because these are not the same goalies that we saw last year for either of these teams.
No, not at all. I mean, honestly, you look. Skinner's had a spectacular year. You look at what he's done for the Edmonton Oilers. It really has stepped up and honed that positioning. And Korpisalo, we know what he can do. His numbers, you got to take in hand. He's coming from Columbus.
Yeah, he had that save percentage playing for an atrocious team in Columbus.
So that is incredible. And
some of those numbers.
Think about the enthusiasm he's got now to get that life, that jump back into him, that injection, adrenaline to going to a team that not just wants to win the Stanley or make the playoffs. They want to win the Stanley Cup. They are way ahead of schedule even by their standards, and they have showing no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, the goaltending between these two teams. And the one thing we know about Korpisalo as well for the LA Kings is that Korpisalo has had some pretty incredible performances in the postseason. You remember that 8-period, 5 overtime game a few years ago in the bubble? It was like a 3 o'clock start. By the time it was over, I thought it was 3 a.m. It was only 11. It was a weird time. It was a weird time. But the point being, he might have been the losing goaltender in that matchup, but I don't remember how many saves he made, but it was a hell of a performance. 85. Thank you, Lawrence Goldstein. We know that Corpy can come up clutch for his team when necessary, and I think he's going to be a big factor in this series, Jeff.
I do too. And you have Gavrikov who comes over along with him, and so they really help bolster this LA King team. I think Korpisalo is going to have to be a monster, though, in that. I do. I think he's going to have to be like bubble Joonas Korpisalo again in a couple of these games. But he's done it, right? So you say, okay, good. And Skinner, who's had a tremendous year, you can make the argument. You go through things. He should absolutely be a guy in consideration, a finalist for Rookie of the Year. He's been tremendous. I mean, I've been completely impressed with him at times this season. But yet he has never had NHL playoff experience. Now, the bubble, a little different. You didn't have anybody in there in the stands. But on the other end, it's still the playoffs.
I was in the stands.
I shouldn't say anybody. Sorry, that's right. We had a
It was
few
one of about
people,
8 people.
Yes, and well distanced apart. I try, And I just think that I think that this is going to be, though, a different experience for both of these guys. I do. And so goaltending will be a mega matchup or a mega important position, as it always is, but in particular in this series as well.